After I caught my family laughing at me for being a pushover, I stopped paying their bills, and now they're facing homelessness while I'm living my best life. The notification came at 11:43 p.m. on a Wednesday while I was reviewing quarterly reports for work. My phone lit up with a video from my sister's number. I almost ignored it, but something made me click. The footage was shaky, clearly accidental. Someone had left their phone recording face down on a table. But the audio was crystal clear. "That's the thing about Derek," my mother's voice said, dripping with amusement. "He's so desperate for our approval, he'll literally bankrupt himself to keep us happy." My father's laugh echoed through the speakers. "Remember when he canceled that promotion opportunity in Seattle because I told him family stays close? Idiot actually believed I had a health crisis." I felt my chest tighten. The Seattle job would have doubled my salary, but Dad had called crying about chest pains, begging me not to move across the country. I'd turned down the position without hesitation, sitting by his hospital bed for 3 days until the doctors declared him perfectly healthy. "Anxiety attack," they'd said. "Stress-induced." My sister's voice joined in. "The best part is how guilty he feels when we get upset with him. Last month I told him I couldn't afford my car payment, and he paid it within an hour. I didn't even need the money. I just wanted to see if he'd do it." More laughter. My uncle's voice, the one I'd looked up to since childhood. "Derek's what you call a chronic people-pleaser. Psychology 101. His dad never validated him as a kid, so now he throws money at us hoping we'll finally tell him he's good enough. Spoiler alert, we won't. Because the second he stops being useful, what's the point of keeping him around?" The room erupted in laughter. I heard at least 8 distinct voices. A family gathering I hadn't been invited to, where I was apparently the main topic of entertainment. My mother spoke again, her tone almost clinical. "I've been documenting every payment he makes. When he eventually comes to his senses and tries to demand repayment, I'll claim it was all gifts freely given. I've got emails where he says things like, 'happy to help,' and 'family comes first.' Legally, he has no recourse." My brother's voice chimed in. "What if he actually stops paying?" someone asked. "Won't happen," my father said confidently. "Derek's wired wrong. He'd rather starve than disappoint us. Plus, we've spent years conditioning him. Every time he sets a boundary, we freeze him out until he breaks. Works every single time. The video cut off. Message deleted. This message has been deleted." My sister had realized her mistake. I sat there staring at my blank screen for maybe 20 minutes. My hands weren't shaking. My heart wasn't racing. I felt nothing except this strange clarity, like someone had finally turned on the lights in a room I'd been stumbling through in darkness for 32 years. I opened my banking app and started scrolling. The numbers told a story I'd been too blind to see. My father's mortgage, $2,400 monthly for the past 6 years, since his temporary setback when he quit his job to find himself. My mother's car payment, $680 monthly because she deserved something nice after all her sacrifices. My sister's rent, $118 to $50 monthly because she was focusing on her art and couldn't work a regular job. My brother's credit card debt, $15,000 paid off in full last Christmas because he'd gotten into a little trouble with online gambling. My uncle's medical bills, $8,000 because he'd skipped buying health insurance and needed an emergency procedure. The list went on. Utility bills, phone bills, streaming services for 6 separate households, car insurance for vehicles I'd never driven, a timeshare my parents had purchased for the family that I'd been paying the maintenance fees on for 4 years. I'd never once used it. I opened Excel and started building a spreadsheet. Every transaction for the past 7 years since I'd started my job at the tech firm, every wire transfer, every Venmo payment, every check I'd written. By 3 a.m., I had the final number, $347,000. Over $250,000 I'd given to people who sat around laughing about how pathetic I was. Money I could have used to buy a house, start a business, retire early. Instead, I was living in a studio apartment eating ramen while they vacationed in Cancun and bought luxury cars. The Seattle job flashed through my mind. I'd turned down a $180,000 salary to stay close to family who called me an idiot behind my back. I'd worked 70-hour weeks for years, sacrificing my health and relationships, climbing the corporate ladder so I could funnel money to people who saw me as nothing more than an ATM with abandonment issues. My therapist's words came back to me from our session 2 months ago. "Derek, I need you to hear this. Your family's financial crises are not your responsibility. You're not obligated to rescue them repeatedly. The pattern you're describing sounds like exploitation, not love." I'd defended them, made excuses, said she didn't understand how family worked. Now I understood perfectly. My phone buzzed at 7:30 a.m. My mother, like clockwork. "Good morning, sweetie. Hope you slept well. Quick reminder, the mortgage is due Friday. Can you handle it by Thursday so it clears in time? Thanks, Han. Love you." I stared at the message for a long moment. For 7 years, I'd responded to messages like this within minutes. "Of course, Mom. Already transferred. Don't worry about it. Anything for you. Not anymore." I typed 4 words. "I can't this month." The response was almost instantaneous. "What do you mean you can't? Derek, this is serious. We're counting on you." I watched the typing indicator appear and disappear repeatedly. She was panicking, probably conferring with my father. Another message. "Derek, I don't understand. You've never said no before. What's going on? Is everything okay? Are you sick? Do you need help? The concern was almost convincing. Almost. If I hadn't heard that recording, I might have caved. I might have apologized for causing stress and immediately sent the money with extra for their trouble. But I had heard it. Every word, every laugh, every clinical discussion of how to manipulate me. I need to focus on my own finances right now, I replied. I've been overextending myself. My phone immediately rang. I declined the call. It rang again. Declined. A text from my father. Son, call your mother. She's very upset. You're worrying her. Then my sister. Derek, seriously? You're pulling this now? Mom's freaking out. What's your problem? My brother. Dude, don't be a dick. Just send the money. You know they need it. My uncle. Derek, your father called me very concerned about your mental state. Are you having a breakdown? Let's talk this through. The messages piled up, each one hitting the same notes. Guilt, obligation, concern, trolling disguised as love. Not one person asked if I was okay. Not one person acknowledged the years I'd been supporting them. They only cared that the money had stopped flowing. I turned off my phone and went to work. My boss noticed immediately. Derek, you look different. Did you get a haircut? I laughed. No, just slept well for the first time in years. She studied my face. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. You've seemed stressed lately. Stressed was an understatement. I'd been having panic attacks in bathroom stalls, taking antacids by the handful, barely sleeping because I was constantly worried about making enough money to support 6 households plus my own. That evening, I turned my phone back on to 127 notifications. Missed calls, voicemails, texts, even emails. My mother had escalated to my work email, marking it urgent. Derek, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this behavior is unacceptable. We need that mortgage payment. Your father and I could lose our home. Is that what you want? For your parents to be homeless? After everything we've done for you? I replied to the work email first. Please don't contact me at my workplace regarding personal matters. This is inappropriate and could affect my employment. Then I opened my personal email and started a new message. I attached the spreadsheet showing every payment I'd made for the past 7 years. I attached screenshots of the bank transfers. I attached my analysis showing $347,000 in total payments. Then I wrote, I've been supporting this family financially for 7 years while sacrificing my own future. I've canceled career opportunities, worked myself into health problems, and lived below my means so you could all live comfortably. I recently discovered that, rather than appreciating these sacrifices, you view me as a joke, a pushover, an ATM you've successfully conditioned to respond to manipulation. Effective immediately, I will no longer be providing financial support to anyone in this family. The attached documentation shows this is not a rash decision, but a long overdue correction. Do not contact me demanding money. Do not contact me with fake emergencies. Do not show up at my home or workplace. I need space to reassess these relationships. Derek. I sent it to everyone. Parents, siblings, uncle, cousins who'd benefited from my generosity over the years. Then I blocked all their numbers except my parents. They deserved the courtesy of one final conversation, but it would happen on my terms. The next morning, my father showed up at my apartment at 6 a.m., pounding on the door hard enough to wake my neighbors. I opened it to find him disheveled and furious. What the hell is wrong with you? He pushed past me into my studio apartment, his eyes scanning the sparse furniture and bare walls. This is how you're living while we're about to lose everything? I stayed calm. This is how I've been living for 7 years while funding your lifestyle. He spun around. Our lifestyle? We're your family. We raised you, fed you, clothed you. You owe us. I pulled out my phone and played the recording. His face went white as he heard his own voice calling me an idiot, heard himself laughing about my canceled promotion, heard my mother discussing her legal strategy to ensure I could never claim repayment. The recording ended, and we stood in silence. Dad opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. We were just venting. You know how it is. Everyone complains about their family sometimes. You weren't complaining, I said quietly. You were strategizing. Mom literally discussed documenting everything to prevent me from getting my money back. You all sat around analyzing my psychology to figure out how to better manipulate me. That's not venting. That's exploitation. He tried a different approach. Son, I understand you're hurt, but you have to understand our perspective. We're struggling. We need help. And you have the means to provide it. I shook my head. You're not struggling. You're living beyond your means using my money. Dad, you quit your $90,000 job 6 years ago. You haven't worked since. Mom works part-time at a gift shop by choice, not necessity. You vacation twice a year. You drive a car that costs more than my annual rent. Don't insult me by claiming poverty. But the mortgage, he started. Sell the house, I interrupted. Downsize. Get an apartment you can actually afford. Or here's a radical idea. Get a job. I'm not your retirement plan. His face turned red. After everything we've done for you, this is the thanks we get? You selfish, ungrateful. He caught himself, but too late. There it was, the real sentiment underneath all the loving parent performance. I was selfish for wanting to keep my own money, ungrateful for not happily bankrupting myself for their comfort. Get out, I said. Dad took a step toward me. Derek, you need to think about what you're doing. You cut us off, you'll have no one. No family, no support system. You'll be alone. I met his eyes. I've been alone this whole time. I just paid for the illusion of family. Now leave, or I'm calling the police. He left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. I sat down on my secondhand couch and felt nothing but relief. That afternoon, my mother called from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. Mom, I told you. Derek, please. She was crying. Real tears this time, I could tell. Please, baby, I'm sorry. We're going to lose the house. We can't make the payment. Your father hasn't been able to find work and I can't cover it with my salary. I waited for the guilt to hit. The panic. The overwhelming need to fix her problem. Nothing came. Mom, what was your plan if I'd taken the Seattle job? Silence. What? The job I turned down 3 years ago. If I'd moved across the country, what was your plan for the mortgage? That's different, she said weakly. You didn't take that job. But what if I had? What if I'd gotten hit by a car? What if I'd lost my job? Did you have any backup plan that didn't involve me? More silence. That's what I thought, I said. You built your entire financial life around the assumption that I'd always be available to bail you out. That's not love, Mom. That's dependency. And the fact that you were documenting everything to protect yourself legally shows you knew exactly what you were doing. Derek, I was just being cautious. You were plotting, I corrected. You were making sure that even if I woke up to what was happening, I'd have no recourse. That recording wasn't just hurtful, Mom. It was revealing. You don't see me as your son. You see me as a resource to be managed. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, what are we supposed to do? Figure it out, I said. Like adults. Like the parents who supposedly prepared me for the real world. Sell the house. Downsize. Dad needs to go back to work. You need to budget better. These are solvable problems that don't require my financial ruin. But Derek, I have to go, Mom. I hope you figure it out. I really do. But it's not my problem anymore. I hung up before she could guilt me further. My phone immediately rang again from another unknown number. I blocked it. Then another. Blocked. They were cycling through friends' phones now, trying to reach me any way possible. I changed my number that evening and only gave it to my boss and my 2 actual friends, college buddies who'd watched this family dynamic from the outside and gently tried to point out the dysfunction for years. Sorry it took me so long to listen, I texted them. Want to grab dinner this week? My treat. For the first time, it actually was my treat. Money I'd earned, money I'd kept, money spent on people who valued me for who I was, not what I provided. They both responded immediately with enthusiastic yes messages and dinner plans. Real relationships. What a concept. The next week was chaos I only heard about secondhand. My college friend Brian ran into my sister at a coffee shop. She'd cornered him, demanding my new number, claiming a family emergency. Brian had played dumb, said we'd lost touch. She'd actually cried in public, making a scene about her heartless brother abandoning the family. Brian texted me. Dude, she's telling people you had a mental breakdown and cut off all contact, playing the victim hard. I wasn't surprised. The narrative was already being written. Derek lost his mind. Derek abandoned his family in their time of need. Derek is selfish and cruel. None of them would admit the truth. They'd been bleeding me dry for years and got caught. My mother tried one more approach. She showed up at my office building, somehow getting past security by claiming to be delivering something urgent. My assistant called me, sounding uncertain. Derek, there's a woman here who says she's your mother. She seems very upset. Tell security to escort her out, I said calmly. If she returns, we'll need a restraining order. There was a pause. Are you sure? She's crying pretty hard. I'm sure. Thank you. 10 minutes later, my boss called me into her office. Derek, I just had a very uncomfortable conversation with a woman claiming to be your mother. She said you're having a mental health crisis and cutting off your family. She wanted me to intervene. I felt my face flush with embarrassment. I'm sorry she bothered you. There's no mental health crisis. I recently discovered my family has been financially exploiting me for years, and I've stopped enabling them. They're not taking it well. My boss nodded slowly. I had a feeling it was something like that. For what it's worth, I've seen a significant improvement in your work quality and attitude this past week. You seem lighter. Whatever you're doing, it's working. Keep it up. And don't worry. Security has been briefed. Your mother won't be allowed back in the building. The relief I felt was profound. For once, someone believed me without question, saw through the manipulation, validated my decision. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in 7 years. I went apartment hunting. Not for a studio, not for the cheapest option, for a place I actually wanted to live. I found a beautiful 1-bedroom in a safer neighborhood with a gym, a balcony, and enough space to breathe. The rent was $400 more than my studio, but still less than what I'd been spending monthly on my family. I signed the lease that night. Moving day came 2 weeks later. My actual friends helped me pack and transport my meager belongings. You know, Brian said, carrying a box of books, you could actually furnish this place. Like, buy a real couch, a bed frame, maybe some art. I laughed. The concept seemed foreign, For so long, I'd kept my own living situation sparse and uncomfortable, subconsciously punishing myself for not giving more to my family. No more. That weekend, I went furniture shopping, bought a proper couch, a real bed frame and mattress, kitchen supplies beyond plastic plates, and one pot. Plants. Artwork. Things that made the space feel like a home instead of a temporary shelter. My college friend Trent came over to help assemble furniture. He paused in the middle of building a bookshelf and said, "Can I be honest about something?" "Always. I've been waiting years for you to wake up. Your family? Man, they've been using you since we met freshman year. Remember when your dad called during finals week our junior year demanding you come home immediately for his birthday? You failed 2 exams. I remembered. I'd felt so guilty for prioritizing school over family. Had spent the whole party being lectured about how college was making me selfish." Trent continued. "Or when your sister called crying about needing money for textbooks, but then posted pictures on Instagram from a music festival the same weekend. I'd seen those pictures, made excuses, told myself she deserved fun too. Maybe she'd borrowed the festival ticket from a friend. Maybe I was being paranoid. We tried to tell you," Trent said gently, "but you weren't ready to hear it." I nodded. "I know. I'm sorry I got defensive." He shook his head. "Don't apologize. You're here now. That's what matters." That night, I slept in my new apartment in my new bed, and for the first time in years, I didn't wake up at 3 a.m. with anxiety about whether I'd transferred enough money to cover everyone's needs. A month after I'd cut them off, my uncle showed up at my gym. I was on the treadmill when I spotted him watching from the weights area. When I finished my run, he approached. "Derek, we need to talk." I pulled out my earbuds. "I don't think we do. Please, 5 minutes. I can't just ignore how this family is falling apart." We went to the parking lot. He immediately launched into his pitch. "Your parents are in serious trouble. They're 3 weeks from foreclosure. Your sister had to move back in with them because she couldn't make rent. Your brother's car got repossessed. The whole family is scrambling." I waited. "And?" He looked shocked. And you need to help them. Derek, their family. They raised you." I crossed my arms. Did they raise me, or did they condition me? Because that recording made it pretty clear what my actual value was to this family. Uncle Wayne's face reddened. We were venting. Everyone says things they don't mean when they're stressed. I shook my head. "Uncle Wayne, let me ask you something. In that recording, did anyone defend me? Did anyone say, hey, maybe we should appreciate what Derek does? Or did you all just laugh about how easy I was to manipulate?" His silence was answer enough. "Here's the thing," I continued. "I've done some calculations. The money I gave this family over 7 years, I could have bought a house outright, started a business, retired a decade early. Instead, I lived like a broke college student well into my 30s so you all could live comfortably. And the second I stop, suddenly I'm the bad guy? That's not fair," he said weakly. "You're right," I agreed. "It's not fair. It wasn't fair to exploit me for 7 years. It wasn't fair to laugh about my psychology behind my back. It wasn't fair to strategize about keeping me trapped in dysfunction. But we're past fair now. We're at consequences." Uncle Wayne tried one more angle. "What about forgiveness? Isn't that what family does? Forgives and moves forward?" "Forgiveness requires acknowledgement," I said. "Genuine remorse. Changed behavior. I haven't received any of that. Just manipulation tactics and victim narratives. So, no, I'm not interested in forgiving people who aren't actually sorry, just sorry they got caught." He left without another word. That evening, I blocked his number too. The emails started arriving next. Long, emotional letters from my mother about how I was tearing the family apart, how my father was depressed and not eating, how my sister was sleeping in her childhood bedroom feeling like a failure, how my brother was having panic attacks about his mounting debt. Each email was carefully crafted to maximize guilt. Photos of my childhood, references to happy memories, quotes about family loyalty and forgiveness. I saved them all in a folder labeled manipulation documentation and didn't respond to a single one. My therapist, whom I'd started seeing weekly, helped me process it all. "They're trying to push every button they installed," she said. "That's what happens when you set boundaries with people who benefit from you having none. The panic, the guilt trips, the escalation, it's all predictable." "How do I make it stop?" I asked. "You don't," she said simply. "You just stop responding to it. Eventually, they'll realize they have no power anymore, and they'll either accept the new dynamic or they'll stop trying. Either outcome means you win." 3 months after I'd cut them off, my father left a voicemail from yet another unknown number. His voice was different. Quiet. Broken. "Derek, it's Dad. I know you probably won't listen to this, but I need to say it anyway. You were right. About all of it. We've been using you. I've been lying to myself about why I quit my job, convincing myself I deserved a break, that you were doing fine financially, so why not accept the help? But it wasn't help. It was theft. We stole 7 years of your life and your future." His voice cracked. "The house is going into foreclosure. We're moving into an apartment next month. Your mother had to get a full-time job. Your sister's working retail, and your brother's doing rideshare at night to pay off his debts. We're all learning what you already knew. that life is hard when you're actually responsible for yourself. I wanted to call you to apologize. Not to ask for money. Not to guilt you. Just to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry we failed you as parents. I'm sorry we taught you that your only value was financial. I'm sorry we laughed at your pain. You deserved better. You deserved a family that loved you for you, not for what you could provide. I listened to it 3 times, looking for the catch, the manipulation, the eventual ask for help. It never came. He just apologized and hung up. I saved the voicemail but didn't respond. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The apology was nice, but it didn't undo 7 years of exploitation. It didn't restore the $347,000, or the career opportunities, or the mental health damage. My mother tried next. A handwritten letter arrived at my new address. She must have hired someone to find me. The envelope was thick, the letter inside at least 10 pages. I almost threw it away without reading, but something made me open it. Derek, I've started therapy. The therapist asked me to write this letter as part of my healing process, but also as an attempt to help you understand what happened from my perspective. Not to excuse it, there is no excuse, but to provide context. I grew up in poverty. Real poverty, not just tight budget, but wondering if we'd have electricity this month. Poverty. When I married your father, he promised me security, a comfortable life. When he quit his job, I panicked. All those childhood fears came rushing back. Instead of dealing with them like an adult, I turned to you. You were successful, stable, and more importantly, you were conditioned from childhood to seek our approval. Your father and I fought constantly during your teenage years. The only thing that made it better was when you'd try to fix things, bring us gifts, do extra chores, excel at school. We accidentally taught you that your worth was tied to your usefulness. Then when you got your job and started making good money, it was so easy to just let you help. 1 payment became 2, became 100. And instead of feeling grateful, I felt entitled. Like you owed us for raising you. The recording you heard? That was us at our worst. Your aunt had been criticizing how we raised you, saying we'd made you too soft. We got defensive and turned it around, made jokes about how we'd trained you well. It was disgusting. We were disgusting. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect reconciliation. I just want you to know that I see it now. I see what we did and I'm horrified. We lost our son trying to keep a lifestyle we couldn't afford. That's not a trade anyone should make, but we were too blind to see it until it was too late. I hope you're happy, Derek. I hope you're building the life you deserve. I hope someday you find people who love you for who you are, not what you provide. You were always enough, even when we made you feel like you weren't. I'm sorry we couldn't see that until we'd already destroyed everything. I set the letter down and cried for the first time since this whole thing started. Not sad tears, not angry tears, just release. The acknowledgement I'd needed. The validation that I wasn't crazy, wasn't selfish, wasn't wrong. They'd seen it. Finally. But seeing it didn't undo it. Apologizing didn't restore what was lost. I could forgive them eventually, maybe. But I would never forget. And I would never let them close enough to hurt me again. I filed the letter away with the other documentation and moved on with my life. 6 months after cutting them off, I got an unexpected call from my brother. He wasn't calling from a blocked number or someone else's phone. It was his actual number, which I'd never blocked because we'd never been close enough for him to bother manipulating me directly. Hey, Derek, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from. Can we meet? I surprised myself by saying yes. We met at a neutral coffee shop. He looked different, thinner, tired, but somehow more solid. Less of the cocky kid and more of an actual adult. I'm not here to ask for money, he started. I know that bridge is burned. I'm here to tell you that you were right. He told me he'd moved back home after his car got repossessed, planning to coast off our parents like always. But there was no coasting anymore. Dad was working construction. Mom was managing a retail store. They were barely keeping their heads above water in a tiny apartment. I had to get a real job, he said. Not gig work, not under-the-table stuff, but actual employment with a W-2 and everything. He laughed bitterly. I'm 28 years old, and I just learned how to budget. How pathetic is that? Not as pathetic as being 32 and just learning to set boundaries, I replied. He nodded. Fair point. Look, I know we destroyed your trust, all of us. We treated you like garbage and expected gratitude for it. I'm not asking for a relationship. I just wanted you to know that some of us are trying to grow up. Finally. How's everyone else? I asked, despite myself. Dad's struggling but surviving. The construction work is hard on him, but he shows up every day. Mom's actually good at retail management. She's talking about maybe going back to school for business. Our sister? He grimaced. She's having the hardest time. She's working, but she hates it. Blames you for everything. Won't take responsibility. Still playing victim. I nodded. That tracked. And you? Why the sudden growth? He was quiet for a moment. I was driving rideshare at 2 a.m., exhausted, listening to this drunk guy brag about how he manipulates his girlfriend into paying for everything. And I realized I was looking at myself. That's who I'd been. That's who we all were. And it made me sick. So I decided to change. Good for you, I said, meaning it. Genuinely. Thanks for telling me. He stood to leave, then paused. For what it's worth? That Seattle job? I looked it up. You'd be making $250,000 by now if you'd stayed on that trajectory. Maybe more. You sacrificed $500,000 in career earnings for us. I think about that a lot. He left. I sat there with my coffee, doing the math. $500,000, plus the $347,000 I'd given them directly. I'd lost nearly $1 million to these people, but I was 32. I had time to rebuild. I had my health, my career, my freedom. I wasn't chained to their dysfunction. Anymore. The money was gone, but I'd bought something more valuable, the knowledge of my own worth. A year after I'd cut them off, I got a promotion. Senior director, massive raise, stock options. The kind of success I'd been capable of all along but couldn't achieve while bleeding resources to my family. My boss took me out to celebrate. You know what I've noticed? She said over drinks. You've become more assertive in meetings, more confident, more willing to advocate for yourself. The old Derek would have accepted whatever was offered. The new Derek negotiated. She was right. Without the constant drain of managing everyone else's crises, I had energy for my own life, for my career, for friendships, for dating, which I'd barely touched in years because what woman wants a man who's financially supporting 6 other people? I met someone 3 months after the promotion. Her name was Adriana, and when she asked about my family on our 3rd date, I told her the truth. The whole truth. She listened without judgment, then said, "That must have been really hard. Setting those boundaries." "Yeah," I admitted. "But necessary." She nodded. "My family's not perfect either. My dad had a gambling problem that almost destroyed us. My mom finally left him when I was 16. She taught me that sometimes love means boundaries, not tolerance. We were married 18 months later. Small wedding, just close friends. I didn't invite my family, didn't send announcements, didn't tell them. My father found out through Facebook, from a friend of a friend's wedding photos. He sent an email, not demanding, not angry, just sad. "I saw you got married. I'm happy for you, Derek. You look happy in those photos. Happier than I ever saw you when you were supporting us. I hope she knows how lucky she is. I hope you know you deserved this all along." I didn't respond, but I saved the email. 2 years after cutting them off, I bought a house. Nothing extravagant, but it was mine. 3 bedrooms, a yard, in a good neighborhood. My wife and I hosted a housewarming party for our actual friends, the people who'd supported us, celebrated with us, showed up when things were hard. The family I'd chosen rather than the one I'd been born into. Brian pulled me aside at one point. "Remember your studio apartment? With the secondhand couch and the mattress on the floor?" I laughed. How could I forget? "Look at you now," he said, gesturing at the home full of friends, at my wife laughing in the kitchen, at the life I'd built. "You did it, man. You actually got out and thrived. The real test came when my mother got sick. 5 years after I'd cut them off, my brother called from his number. Mom's in the hospital. She had a stroke. She's asking for you." I felt the old guilt try to rise up, that conditioning trying to activate. But it was weaker now. Distant. Like an echo of who I used to be. "I'll think about it," I told him. "Let me talk to my wife." Adriana held my hand while I processed. "You don't owe them anything," she said, "but you might regret not going. Not for them, for you." So we went. Together. My mother was in a hospital bed, smaller than I remembered. She'd aged more than 5 years should account for. Her eyes filled with tears when she saw me. "Derek. Baby." I nodded. "Mom. Is this your wife?" "She's beautiful." "This is Adriana," I confirmed. We sat in awkward silence until my father cleared his throat. He was there too, also aged, also diminished. "Son, thank you for coming. You didn't have to." "I know," I said simply. The power dynamic had shifted completely. I wasn't the desperate kid seeking approval anymore. I was the successful adult who'd built a good life despite them, not because of them. Mom struggled to speak. The stroke had affected her left side. I'm so sorry. For everything. I know I said it before, but seeing you now, seeing what you built, I understand what we took from you. I'm proud of you." Something in me broke open hearing that. Not forgiveness exactly, but a kind of peace. She'd finally said the words I'd needed as a child. "Proud of you. For being me, not for being useful." "I'm doing well," I said. "We're doing well." I gestured to Adriana. "We're thinking about starting a family soon." My mother smiled through tears. "You'll be a wonderful father. Better than we were." "Yeah," I said. "I will." We stayed for an hour, made small talk, met my brother's girlfriend who seemed normal and grounded, heard about my sister's life. She'd finally gotten therapy and was working on herself. The family had fractured and rebuilt into something smaller but healthier. When we left, my father walked us to the car. "Derek, I know I have no right to ask, but would it be okay if we sent Christmas cards? Maybe birthday cards for your kids when they come. We wouldn't ask for anything, wouldn't push for more. Just a small connection." I looked at my wife. She squeezed my hand. "Your choice," she said. "You can give them an inch," I said to my father. "But the first time you push for a mile, We're done. Forever. This time I won't feel guilty about it. He nodded quickly. Understood. Thank you, son. That's more than we deserve. We drove home in silence. I felt Adriana watching me. How are you feeling? She asked. Honestly, I feel okay. Not great, not terrible. Just okay. She smiled. That's healthy. That's what closure looks like. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Christmas cards arrived that year, birthday cards when our daughter was born. My parents met their granddaughter once, briefly, under supervision. They sent appropriate gifts, nothing extravagant, nothing that felt like debt creation. They respected boundaries. We didn't rebuild the old relationship. We built something new, something sustainable. They were grandparents at a distance, not the all-consuming presence they'd been before. My sister never reached out. I heard through my brother that she still blamed me for the family's financial collapse, refused to acknowledge her role in the exploitation. That was fine. Not everyone grows. Not everyone changes. Some people need their victimhood too much to let it go. 10 years after I'd cut them off, I was sitting on my back porch watching my kids play in the yard. My son was 7, my daughter 5. They were arguing over a toy with that passionate intensity only small children can muster. Adriana came out with lemonade. What are you thinking about? She asked. I'm thinking about how much money I have in their college funds, I said. How we've already paid off the house. How we vacation twice a year without debt. How we're on track to retire early. How none of that would be possible if I'd stayed trapped in that old dynamic. She sat beside me. Do you ever regret cutting them off? Sometimes I regret how it happened, I said. That it took a recording to open my eyes instead of just trusting myself sooner. But I don't regret the decision itself. That decision saved my life. My kids ran over, demanding we settle their toy dispute. We mediated, taught them about sharing and compromise and respecting boundaries. All the things my parents never taught me. That night, after the kids were in bed, I opened my laptop and looked at my financial tracking spreadsheet. In the 10 years since I'd stopped funding my family, I'd accumulated $1.2 million in savings and investments, more than triple what I'd given them. The money I'd lost would never come back, but I'd more than made up for it. More importantly, I'd built something they could never take from me, a life based on mutual respect, healthy boundaries, and genuine love rather than financial obligation. My phone buzzed with a text from my brother. Just wanted to say thanks again for coming to visit last month. Mom's doing better. The whole family really appreciated seeing you and meeting the kids. We don't take it for granted. I smiled and replied, glad she's improving. Talk to you next month. Boundaries maintained, relationship preserved at a healthy distance, everyone surviving in their own orbits instead of collapsing into each other's dysfunction. I thought about the Derek from 10 years ago, the pushover, the people pleaser, the man who believed his only value was his bank account. He'd made a choice in a moment of clarity, and that choice had rippled through the next decade, transforming everything. The family I'd cut off had been forced to grow up, get real jobs, face consequences. Some of them handled it better than others, but all of them were better off than they'd been in that codependent nightmare. And me? I'd built a life I never imagined possible. Not just financially, though that was significant, but emotionally, psychologically. I'd learned to value myself, to set boundaries, to choose relationships based on mutual benefit rather than one-sided sacrifice. The old Derek would have bankrupted himself to help. The new Derek helped when appropriate, on his terms, with clear boundaries. The old Derek lived in fear of disappointing people. The new Derek understood that people who loved him wouldn't want him to sacrifice his well-being for theirs. It wasn't the dramatic revenge story some people might have wanted. I didn't destroy them. I just stopped saving them, and they had to save themselves. Some did, some didn't. But all of them learned that I was a person, not a resource. That was enough. The kids were calling again. Something about wanting a bedtime story. I closed my laptop and headed upstairs, leaving the past in the past where it belonged. 10 years later, after I caught my family laughing at me for being a pushover, I'd stopped paying their bills. They'd faced consequences, learned hard lessons, and rebuilt their lives on sustainable foundations. And I was living my best life, not in spite of them, but because I'd finally chosen myself. Somewhere in that decade, I'd stopped being the son who desperately needed their approval and became the man who didn't need anything from them at all. That was the real freedom. Not the money saved or the house bought or the career advanced. It was the quiet confidence of knowing that I was enough, exactly as I was, whether they saw it or not. The validation I'd been seeking my entire life came from within, and once I found it, no one could take it away. Not with guilt trips, not with manipulation, not with the family card. I was finally, completely, unshakably free. If you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.